Alright, so this is the new project screen. Here I usually choose 1920 by 1080 because that's what YouTube, that's the max that it allows, and my source material's at least that high. If you have a slower internet or a smaller monitor or something, you might start out with 1280 by 720. So I've got some videos here, and I drop them onto the timeline. Now here what I want to do is I want to make the boss's health bar a lot bigger so that anybody who's watching the video, regardless of the size, they can actually see the health bar. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to zoom in on that part of the video. And we go to Video Event, Pan and Crop. And we rotate or size this thing down so that it is right over his health bar. And you can zoom in too if it gets too much for you. Okay, so there we go. We've got a nice zoom in of his health bar, and we want to do two things here. We want to just save this preset because we need to apply it to the next video, and we want it to be spot on so that when the two videos combine there won't be any noticeable change. Just save it, and you can save it as a name. Then we also want to remember these two numbers right here, though, 122 by 45. So close that out, go to the next video, Video Event, Pan and Crop, and apply that, and you'll see it zoomed in on it. Okay. So now we have a video of a health bar. Okay, so now we're ready to render this. Go to Render As. Under here, I use MP4 because that's what makes YouTube happy. Just choose one of them, it doesn't really matter. Go to Customize Template, and here we need to change this to AVC so that we can get custom frame size right here. Here's where we type in that size that we had from the crop. Change the bitrate, keep it low, 384 kilobits per second, that's fine. And then audio, we do not want to include the audio. And we'll give it a name here, and then we hit render. And so now it'll go through and render, and we'll pick up when it's done. Alright, so the video's done. Now we need to go back and change this to where we see the whole thing. And if we right click and say restore, it'll put it back to the way that it used to be. Now here, because this video was originally recorded at 1920 by 1200, we end up having these black bars over here. To get rid of that, we pretty much just do the exact same thing that we did. And we go in and just kind of watch those bars and see, go over here, turn off the aspect ratio, and then you can see as we expand out the video that starts to fit. So there we go. So that's our shape that will fill the frame, and we can move it around to try to get whatever we want into the frame. Since we have the boss's health bar, I'm just going to clip it out up here since we don't really need that. And then be sure to save it as something because we need to apply the same thing to the other one, and we want it to be exactly the same. So again, go over here, and we're going to apply that one. So now you'll see when we cross the transition that it'll stay the same. Alright, so we're ready to import this overlay. We drop it over, and we need to go in. First we need to zoom in on the video itself, just the part that we want. Just need to turn off our aspect ratios here. Okay, so here we just want to get rid of any of the black bars, and that's fine. We'll just leave it like that. Then we go over here to this track motion for the whole track. Here what we want to do is zoom in, and then we move it to wherever we want. Okay, so in that case we're going to leave it like that. And you see now, when we play the video, we'll have the mob's health bar much bigger, so you can see it a lot better. Alright, for the next part, if we want to add music, we can drag it down here to one of the audio tracks, and you can see that this, based on the waveform here, that this audio is going to be much louder than the gameplay, and we don't really want the audio to drown out everything. So we'll just kind of see how it goes. So see, obviously that's a lot louder. The way to fix that is to select the track and then go up to Insert Audio Envelopes and do Volume. And that'll put this little bar straight down the middle. And what you can do is drag it. And we're going to have to go down quite a bit. So we'll see how this sounds. So that's still too loud. Still a little too loud. Okay. So that seems to be better. We're gonna wait. We want to cut out the beginning here, so we're gonna find a part. Okay, so we found this part right about here, where we want to start the music. And if we hit the S key allows us to split parts. So you see here now, this track can now be selected, and we can delete it, and we can move that forward. And you can also do that with the video tracks too, where you can just select a part, and if you hit S, now you've got two different tracks, or two different segments to the video. So we want to maybe fade in the song. It's still a little too loud, so we're going to use the volume slider. Okay, so that seems to be a okay compromise. Now, obviously, the song is much longer. So if we go here, you just select, that centers the line with everything, and again, if you hit S, now we can delete that. Okay, so we can see how it sounds like here, but we'll also notice something up here. Watch the graphic area up here. This is something we'll have to clean up as well. So you can see right here, this area, we need to get rid of that. So we need to go back. We need to find out when he died, and we will split that track right there. So now this should look a little bit better. As he dies, it'll go away. So see, that looks better, and it clears up the area up there as well. Alright, for the next part we're going to look at some image overlays. I think there was a part here where I was standing in bad stuff. Yeah, so right here you can see I'm standing in the black puddle. Shouldn't be doing that. So we're going to point that out. So what we want to do is we want to say the output here, we're going to go to best, full, and then we're going to save, we're going to copy the snapshot to clipboard, and then we're going to bring up whatever image editor you use. I use paint.net, and we're going to paste, and okay, so here's our full image. You can see it says 1920 by 1080. And what we're going to do is add a new layer above that. And this is where we're going to put whatever we want to say or draw or whatever. So I'm just going to put an arrow with some text. It'll say, don't stand in the bad stuff. Okay, so this is the layer we want, but we don't want this background stuff. So we're going to disable that, and this will give us the layer of our text and then an alpha layer. The alpha is transparent. We need to save this as an image. The only two image types that are common that really save this, that preserve alpha, is GIF and PNG. GIF, you're probably going to lose some color quality, so we'll stick with PNG. Okay, now we'll go back over here, and we've got this image, and you see now, even as we play, mute the music here so we can. So you see, because it's transparent, it stays there. And of course, if we want, we can fade it in, fade it out, just to make it a little bit more nicer looking. And maybe pull it in just a little bit here. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now, one other thing. Let's say, for instance, our song was just a little too short, and we didn't have this part right here. If we wanted to make it just a hair bit longer, we can hold the shift key, and you'll see that the little icon here will get some squiggly lines, and that means that you can stretch it. Oh, looks like it's actually the control key. Okay, so that allowed us to stretch the song to get it to line up just right. But you don't want to stretch songs or videos too much because it'll slow it down, because it has to cover a longer distance using the same amount of source material. So if you just do a little bit of stretching, it's okay. Now another thing with the volume and the audio envelopes, let's say when the boss dies, we just don't want any audio whatsoever. So that blue line for the audio envelope's way down here because we lowered the volume. If we say add a point, and then we need to add a second point right after that, we can now we can drop that down to infinite, and it'll be completely dead. And so here, if we play it, we'll hear music, and then after that certain point, the music will just go away. So now you hear there's no music. And then we'll go back over here and you'll be able to hear it. Here we're just going to add a zoom in, and then we're going to have it sit on that zoom in, kind of like where you know, like a freeze frame. So what we do is we say copy snapshot. We'll go back to our image editor. Okay, so here's our full frame, and we'll leave it just like this. And then do a refresh. Okay, so we got freeze. And now what we want to do is we want to go to split, and we're going to pull this out just a little bit. We're going to drop it in there. Now, the problem here when you do a split like this is that when you do it this way, you lose audio, so you got to figure out some way to fix that. But you see here, we hit play, and then it stops, and then it picks back up. Okay, so let's say during this freeze frame we wanted to zoom in and see the loot. Do a right click on it, video event, but we don't want it to just instantly be zoomed in on the thing. We want it to be a little more realistic looking. So what we do is we move the time, we add a point, and then we add a second point, and so this area in between is our transition period. And so this will be our starting transition, our starting point, and this will be our end point. And what we do is we pull this in to where we want. And then we drag the slider bar to another point. So then we add a point, and then we add another point, and then right here we'll right click and say restore. And so when you drag this thing, you'll see that it moves around. And so then when we go out here and we watch it, it'll be a more natural looking zoom in. Okay, well this should be enough to kind of give us a general idea of how a video is made. So go to render as, and again you want to do the higher resolution, and we will say we want a MP4 here, internet 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames per second. That's good. This 16 megabit per second is way too high for YouTube. It's just going to end up making a really big video. I mean, if you want to use it for archiving it yourself, that's fine, but for uploading, that's way too high of a bit rate. I usually do like 6 megabits per second. So just make sure audio, yep, everything's good. And at this point we render it, and then we will see the actual video.